Why cannot you stop thinking about it? You know the conversation is over, the email is sent, the decision is made. And yet, at 1 in the morning, your brain pulls it back out like evidence in a try. Nobody asked it to reopen. You replay the sentence you wish you had said differently. You imagine a better version. You build an alternate timeline that changes nothing, and you know it changes nothing. But you do it anyway. People love to say, just stop thinking about it. Distract yourself. Think positively. Get some sleep. As if the problem is that you simply have not tried hard enough to let it go. I do not think that is true. Overthinking is not a failure of willpower. It is not a personality flaw, and it is not proof that something is wrong with you. It is an ancient survival system doing exactly what it evolved to do in a world it was never designed for. In the next few minutes, you will discover why your brain refuses to let certain thoughts go and why understanding that mechanism is the first step to finally breaking the cycle. Picture it. You are lying in bed, the lights are off, the house is quiet, and your body is ready to sleep. There is nothing left to do, and that is exactly when it starts. A comment from a meeting 3 days ago suddenly resurfaces. Did that sound dismissive? You replay the exact words, the tone, the expression on the other person's face. You draft a text to explain yourself. Delete it. Draft it again. Then, somehow, your brain drags up a mistake from a year ago, completely unrelated, as if it has been waiting for its turn. Your chest tightens. Your jaw is clenched, and you do not even remember when that happened. You glance at the clock. 40 minutes have disappeared replaying a conversation that is already over with someone who has probably forgotten it. You did not choose this. You did not decide to spend your night here. You were simply lying still, and your mind took over. That is the confusing part. You handled the day well. You made good decisions. You are not anxious about everything. So why does your mind speed up the moment your body slows down? Why does the quietest part of the day become the loudest place in your head? The answer is not that your brain suddenly becomes more anxious at night. It is that when the outside world finally goes quiet, your brain has nothing left to compete with. That is when the unfinished thoughts take center stage. Here is what is really happening beneath the surface, and it is not what most people think. We often treat overthinking as an emotional problem. Too much anxiety, not enough calm. But underneath it, overthinking is a misdirected problem-solving instinct. Your brain does not experience rumination as wasted effort. It experiences it as unfinished work. A psychological principle called the Zeigarnik effect helps explain why. In the 1920s, psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik observed that waiters remembered unpaid orders with remarkable accuracy, but quickly forgot them once the bill was settled. Unfinished tasks stay active in the mind. Finished ones fade away. Your brain treats an awkward conversation, an unanswered message, or an uncomfortable silence the same way. As far as it is concerned, the situation is still open. That is why replaying the moment feels strangely productive. It gives you the sensation that you are making progress, even when nothing is actually changing. Rumination imitates productive thinking. It looks like analysis, review, and preparation. But it lacks the one ingredient that real problem-solving requires: new information or meaningful action. Without either of those, your brain keeps running the same mental loop, searching for a sense of closure it can never create on its own. That is why telling yourself to just stop thinking about it rarely works. You are not failing because you lack discipline. You are using a problem-solving system on a problem that can no longer be solved through thinking alone. So let us ask a deceptively simple question. What is a thought when your brain believes something is still a threat? Deep inside your brain is a small structure called the amygdala, whose job is to detect danger. But danger is not limited to physical threats. For most of human history, social rejection could be just as dangerous because survival depended on belonging to a group. That is why your brain treats criticism, awkward conversations, and signs of exclusion as meaningful threats. Brain imaging studies, including research by Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA, show that social pain and physical pain activate many of the same brain regions. When your brain decides a threat has not been resolved, it hands the problem to the prefrontal cortex, part of your brain responsible for planning, reasoning, and running mental simulations. Normally, this helps you solve real problems. The problem is that it does not know when the opportunity to solve the problem is already gone. If the conversation has ended, or the decision has already been made, there is no new information left to process. Yet your brain keeps running the same simulations, searching for an answer that no longer exists. That is why overthinking feels active without ever feeling complete. Another important player is the default mode network, or DMN. This network becomes most active when your attention is not focused on the outside world while lying in bed, showering, or driving a familiar route. In those quiet moments, your brain naturally turns inward, reviewing memories, imagining the future, and evaluating your relationships. If an unresolved social threat is already on your mind, the DMN gives it the perfect opportunity to replay itself. Psychologist Susan Nolan Hoeksema, who spent decades studying rumination, found that overthinkers do not examine problems more deeply, they examine them more narrowly. Instead of discovering new solutions, the brain circles the same thoughts until they become mental grooves. Meanwhile, every pass through that loop tells your body the threat is still present. Your stress system responds by releasing cortisol, preparing you for a danger that no longer exists. Over time, this can interfere with sleep, memory, and clear thinking, leaving you mentally exhausted even though nothing has actually happened. So here is the real insight, and that is the mistake almost everyone makes. They think overthinking is a thinking problem. It is not. It is a closure problem. Your brain is not asking for more analysis. It is waiting for evidence that the situation is finished. Mental replay feels productive because it resembles problem solving, but it can never provide the one thing your nervous system actually needs, a genuine signal that the loop is closed. There is one more reason the loop almost always focuses on the worst possibilities. Psychologists call it negativity bias. Your brain evolved to remember potential threats more strongly than positive experiences because, for our ancestors, overlooking danger carried a much greater cost than overlooking a reward. That is why one awkward comment often outweighs 10 compliments. The important thing to remember is this: your mind is not trapped because it is weak. It is following an ancient survival strategy that mistakes ordinary social uncertainty for real danger. Once you understand that, the goal stops being to think harder. Instead, it becomes giving your brain the closure it has been searching for all along. But what does that actually look like in real life? It is one thing to understand the mechanism. It is another thing to experience your brain slowly learning that not every unfinished thought needs to be replayed. Let us call her April. April was 34, sharp, and, as she put it, always 5 conversations behind in my own head. Every night, before falling asleep, her mind replayed the day's loose ends, a Slack message she would reread too many times, a decision she would already made but kept questioning, an old argument with her sister that resurfaced without warning. She was not in crisis. She simply lost an hour or two every night to a mind that refused to clock out, and she was started believing that is just who she was. The turning point was not dramatic. One night, halfway through another mental spiral, she caught herself thinking, I am replaying the same conversation every night, and nothing is changing. I am not solving anything. I am just suffering on a schedule. For the first time, instead of asking how to stop overthinking, she asked why it kept happening. After learning about the brain's open loop mechanism, she tried something surprisingly simple. Every evening, at the same time, she spent 10 minutes writing down every unresolved thought, not to solve it, just to move it out of her head and onto paper. Within 2 weeks, the late-night spirals became shorter. They were not gone, but her brain slowly began trusting that those thoughts had somewhere to go, besides endless replay. A month later, she added one more habit: 2 minutes of slow breathing before bed. It was not about relaxing perfectly. It was about giving her body the same message she would already given her mind: that the day was over, A few months later, she noticed something unexpected. She would catch a spiral beginning during the day and think, "That is an open tab. I will deal with it tonight." Instead of being pulled into the loop, she could postpone it. 6 months later, she described the change to a friend this way: "I did not get a quieter brain. I got a brain that finally believes me when I tell it something is handled." That is the real change. The thoughts did not disappear. Her brain simply stopped treating every unfinished moment like an emergency. And that is what happens when you stop arguing with your nervous system and start working with it instead. At this point, you might be thinking, "I have tried journaling. I have tried breathing exercises. My brain still will not stop." That is understandable. The problem is not usually the technique. It is how it is being used. Start with one simple habit. Set aside 10 to 15 minutes, ideally an hour or two before bed. During that time, write down every unresolved thought that is circling in your mind. Do not organize it. Do not judge it, and do not try to solve it. The goal is not insight. The goal is transfer. You are moving the thought out of your mind and into something physical. Psychologists often call this worry time, and research suggests it reduces intrusive rumination because your brain finally has an answer to the question, "When am I going to deal with this?" Here is the mistake most people make. They start analyzing the thought while writing it down. Do not. Simply write it as it is. "I am worried that email sounded rude. I am still thinking about yesterday's conversation." Then move on. You are not trying to win an argument with your mind. You are permitting it to stop holding everything in working memory. Next, create a simple physical closure ritual before bed. It does not have to be elaborate. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4, and exhale for 6. A longer exhale activates your body's calming system, giving your nervous system the same message your notebook gave your mind. The day is over. Over the next 2 weeks, notice when your overthinking usually begins. Most people discover it is not random. It appears during the same situations, the same hours, or after the same kinds of social interactions. Once you recognize the pattern, you can interrupt it before it gathers momentum. One more thing. The brain's default mode network becomes most active when your attention has nothing else to do. That does not mean you should stay busy all evening. It means your highest risk moments are often the empty ones. Reading, a focused hobby, a conversation, or any activity that gently occupies your attention can prevent the loop from taking over before your closure routine begins. Most importantly, do not expect a completely silent mind. That is not the goal. The goal is shorter loops, faster recovery, and fewer nights spent trapped inside the same conversation. With consistent practice, many people notice meaningful improvement within a few weeks. And one final point: if your worry is constant, overwhelming, or making it difficult to function in daily life, these strategies alone may not be enough. Persistent rumination can be part of a larger mental health condition, and that is something worth discussing with a qualified mental health professional. These techniques are designed for everyday overthinking, not as a replacement for professional care. When it is needed, remember where we started: lying in bed, exhausted, ready to sleep, yet somehow trapped inside a conversation that ended days ago, replaying every word and wondering why you cannot simply let it go. Now you know why. It was never a lack of discipline. It was not proof that you think too much or that something is wrong with you. It was an ancient survival system doing what it was designed to do, treating an unresolved social experience like a threat that still needs an answer. The problem is that your brain cannot close that loop through endless replay. It closes loops through evidence: a thought written down, a decision to revisit it tomorrow, a body that has been given a physical signal that the day is over. Those small actions tell your nervous system something endless thinking never can. The threat has passed. So tonight, do not try to force your mind to be quiet. Take one page. Write down what is still circling, not to solve it, just to close the tab. Because the loop was never proof that something was broken inside you. It was proof that your brain has been working overtime, trying to protect you the only way it knows how. And once you understand that, you can finally start working with your mind instead of fighting against it. If this helped you understand your own late-night spirals, there is a lot more about the human mind worth exploring. Do you ever catch yourself replaying conversations or imagining worst-case scenarios? What has helped you break the cycle? Let us know in the comments. Your experience might help someone else. If you found this video valuable, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who tends to overthink. It helps us create more videos exploring psychology, neuroscience, and the hidden patterns of the human mind. The next time your mind starts replaying the same conversation, remember this: it is not asking you to think harder, it is asking you to feel safe enough to stop.